Welcome to the Drip Marketing Podcast. Today, we're speaking to my favorite paid ad specialist, Geoff. He helps us with some of our paid ads clients, our own majority of his work is actually done on our own projects, to be honest. And maybe Geoff can clarify because I'm not involved with the clients anymore, but he is definitely my favorite. His position is very complex because he helps me more than just paid ads, but I'm going to let him introduce himself. Go ahead, Geoff.
Hey, Puya, thanks for having me today. Good at talking to you.
Tell me what you do, Geoff. How did you start?
Well, I started off as well back in probably 1998. I was an IT guy, and I had a friend at the time who was also an IT guy, and he said, "Hey, you know that we could maybe sell Viagra and gambling online." And I was like, "What kind of crazy witchcraft are you talking about?" And so we explored it a little bit more. I ended up developing a IIS server in my basement. At the time, web hosting was really expensive. It wasn't uncommon for people to be spending $1,000 a month on basic web hosting. So we built our own web server and we started building pages with sort of a black hat format. Black hat would be basically making pages that sort of contradict every Google sort of best practices policy. But the idea of the black hat SEO was to generate as much traffic as possible in order to generate sales for other people. So we were doing this for Viagra companies. The internet at that time was ahead of the laws, so that Canadian companies were able to sell Viagra to American customers. And then there was also things we would see a lot of online gambling, either offshore or even in Canada. Then that eventually became sort of illegal, or the laws changed eventually into that. And then part of that black hat process also was supplemented with things called pay-per-click. Pay-per-click probably started around 1998 with a company called GoTo.com. This was before AdWords or before Google. Google at that time was basically, I think their goal was to make search engine appliances, and they didn't really understand even the pay-per-click model. But then they saw GoTo making some money. So GoTo was selling its services to, I believe it was Yahoo at the time. And so that was really sort of the real first pay-per-click search engine. And then when I think Google, once they sort of witnessed that, Google decided that they would build their own search engine. And then as Google became more complex and search engines became more complex, it became much more difficult to perform black hat SEO. And so then I went into sort of white hat SEO. And then as I was working on sort of white hat SEO and AdWords, I slowly started morphing into pay-per-click. That sort of became my specialty. I was more interested in pay-per-click than I was SEO. So I have a pretty large background in SEO, but now my main focus, primarily 80% of my work, is probably pay-per-click work.
Yeah, so you're what we call an OG. You started way early in the game, and that's cool. That's very cool.
I don't know if it's impressive or depressing that I've been doing the same thing
No,
for
no,
so
it's
long. So
impressive, Geoff. It's absolutely impressive, and that's why I love working with you. Now, Geoff, you've always helped with CRO, and
Mhm.
it's not you don't just do paid ads. And I've worked with other paid ads specialists or experts, and they take your website and they're like, okay, I'll put up ads. I'll do a good job. And, I'll target the right demographic, keywords, and everything else. But there's something different about you, which you'll probably mention right now, and that's conversion rate optimization. And you looking over a website and suggesting ideas. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that probably started off as an accidental thing. So, you'd be working with customers and you're putting together what you think is a beautifully crafted campaign with all the right campaign settings and all the beautiful ad groups and meticulous ads, but it's just not performing. And so what sort of naturally happened as a defense mechanism was like, customer pushing back, and I'm not really impressed with this. And then so what I started looking at is like, okay, let's sort of looking at this sort of more holistically. I'm generating incredible traffic for the customer. It's really clear keyword intentions. Everything's tickety boo. But then you go and look at, where am I sending that traffic to? And then you look at the website, and I don't know how many times I've seen this, where like in the fold or the first part of the website where you don't have to scroll is, the company or the website doesn't actually declare what they're actually promoting. It's not always clear all the time. So you'd be pushing back and go, well, maybe if you actually declared on the hero shot of the image what you're actually promoting on the page. A lot of times customers, they build a website and they sort of think once they build it, they never have to kind of come back and look at it. And a lot of times people who are building websites are great website builders, but they're not great marketers. So I think it's important that when you're spending money on AdWords, because AdWords is an investment and it does cost money, you want to make sure that the website you're sending that traffic to is doing the best job possible. And there's even like really simple things, like we'll take like a plumbing company and they'll be like, we fix pipes. And it's like, well, that's obvious that you fix pipes. But what's maybe more important is having things like a unique selling proposition and declaring to the customer, why would they choose you? Is it maybe because you can have, we promise on-time scheduling, we guarantee our work for 90 days, we have insured and maybe criminal backgrounds on all of our plumbers are uniform, drive skin trucks type of thing. And so we want to have it so that when the customer lands on the web page, that they're reading the content on that page, nodding their head and going, yeah, that's a company I don't want to, sorry, that's a company I do want to be working for. And so I've really found that CRO was really a necessary thing that goes with AdWords, because you can drive the most qualified, beautiful traffic, but if the page is not doing its job, you're going to have a failing AdWords campaign. And I think it's really important that, when I work with the customer, we sort of tell them, it's like, hey, I can do all these things for you, but there's a list of deficiencies that I see on your website, and that stuff needs to be fixed. And this is especially true back in the day, like, wow, back in the days before like WordPress, when it wasn't really easy to modify websites. Now most people use WordPress or some kind of content management system, and it's almost unforgivable to not be coming back and looking and revamping your website. Because I guarantee everybody looking at the website, if they came back and revisited their website, I'm sure they can find things that they could improve or think like, wow, I don't know why I phrased like that. I could phrase it so much better. Maybe it's shorter, maybe it's more terse, but yeah, CRO is definitely a necessary component of AdWords. And I think any good AdWords manager has to at least be thinking as part of that other strategy.
Yeah, I include that with everything we do, and I take your suggestions very seriously. And you even made suggestions on our own personal websites. You work with us and you're like, hey, this person's landing on this, mini excavator page, but not sure you're conveying the message properly from my ads. You're not creating that scent. When somebody clicks on that ad, you better be showing them what I spoke about in the ad, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it could be something as simple too, like, you'll see this with, we'll use plumbing as an analogy because it's something that people can easily wrap their heads around. You'll see a one-page plumbing company, and it's really difficult for a single page for a lot of reasons. It's difficult for it to rank organically, but it's also difficult for a single page to represent a complex AdWords campaign. So a lot of plumbing companies might install heat pumps, furnaces, boilers, hot water tanks, drainage and stuff like that. And so a lot of times it's sort of another sin of websites is people make their websites not complex enough. If I'm going to be driving ads to, someone's paying for, we're going to be bidding on the keyword, say boiler installations or service providers near me. I want to drive that customer to a page, and the first thing they see is boiler installations done right, something like that. And so that's another sort of carnal sin, and even a simple component of CRO is it's just breaking your website up into enough logical categories. Of course, you don't want to have too many pages. It becomes sort of overwhelming if you have too many, but you also want to have pages that are relating to those very distinct services. And that also is a really important thing as CRO. And I see too often companies trying to do too much with too little pages, which is a bad idea for your conversion rates, your organic search results, and your ad performance.
Geoff, horror stories. Give me one big horror story.
Oh yeah, horror stories. There's a lot of guys that do marketing. Someone builds their uncle's website and now they're sort of an instant marketer. I was working for another agency, so I do subcontracting for a lot of agencies. And, a lot of these agencies provide a stack or a layer of services. And so one of the agencies I was working with, they had a customer, and that customer was not happy with the current agency. They decided to go to another agency to do actually do all of their marketing for them. And I was quite cozy with that customer, but, they had to go with the whole package. And I said to the customer, leave me in your AdWords account because, I want to make sure as a champion for you that they're doing a good job. I'm going to check in once in a while. I'm not going to touch the account, but I want to see what they're working on. And it was pretty obvious after about a month that these guys did not know what they were doing and didn't really understand the concept of AdWords. Maybe they could sort of talk the talk, but they couldn't walk the walk. And so they ended up bidding on this was a plumbing shop at the time, and not for analogy's sake, but for real. And they were bidding on keywords like repair. And I was really taken back by the keyword repair. So I put together a report for the customer. I'm like, well, 10% or 20% of your ad spend is going to the keyword repair. So I sent this off to the customer, and so the customer could then go to that agency and ask them why they were doing it. And they came back and they said, well, we don't currently have any ways to measure conversions, or our KPI, or we're not using conversions as an important KPI, but our current KPI is really impressions to the website. And so an impression is when someone sees your ad, that is considered an impression. And they were using impressions as their kind of key performance metric, and that is just a really really bizarre thing, because the word repair doesn't mean anything. It's a very vague phrase. Repair what? Repair a car, repair a dishwasher, repair pipes. And so I sort of expressed to the customer, I was like, I don't think that's being effectively spent. And they didn't have conversion tracking at the time. And so the only way you can sort of sense it is to see if phone calls go up and down. Ironically, or not ironically, but eventually the customer sort of realized that the phone wasn't ringing and ended coming back. And so that other agency, where they failed was the inability to either implement and use conversion tracking, and even understanding a simple concept like keyword intention. And that example is repair. And that's, to me, another kind of tangential thing is people don't think, or sometimes immature account managers don't even understand keyword intentions themselves. I'll give you a really good example. Would be like, if we look at the keyword camera, it's a pretty vague phrase. If I was bidding on the keyword camera, I probably wouldn't be willing to pay too much for that, because it's a very vague phrase. You might be able to add another word onto it. Digital camera means a little bit more. We've now eliminated film cameras from that, but even digital camera doesn't mean much. There's so many types of digital cameras. So then if it's like a Canon EOS Rebel TI, that has a very clear keyword intention. At least we're looking for that type of camera. But then if someone types in buy Canon EOS TI Rebel, well, now that is very, very clear keyword intention. The clearer the keyword intention, the more expensive the keyword is going to be. The broader the keyword intention, like camera, you're probably going to want to pay less for that. But I've seen that time and time again. I do a lot of auditing for accounts too. People will pay me because they want to make sure that their current provider is maybe doing a good job. And I see that a lot. And I think, that's just having immature reps, managing accounts. And that's probably one of the most common errors that I see. But yeah, bidding on repairs, just
Dumb.
shake my head. It was horrible. And it's real life stuff. It's
Yeah.
hard. Can't even believe it even happened, actually. So
Oh, it happens. Oh, it happens. I
yeah, oh,
remember
it
it happening.
happens.
And tell me this. You know, one thing that happens with the new clients or older clients that just come by, I noticed that getting account access is actually very difficult. And either that or some agencies, some paid advertising agencies give you their own bids. I've seen that also. I think
Mm.
I remember this company called Think Profits doing that, but I don't know if that's still true, if that's still happening. Is that still an issue? Account access or agencies charging their own bids?
Yeah, I haven't seen that in a while, but I have run across a lot of accounts that did do that. I think there might have been other agencies as well. So what was happening was that agency would just charge a flat rate for AdWords, and then they would give you a report, and that report would include, for X amount of dollars, you got X amount of clicks and X amount of impressions, but they actually didn't drill down and define, you paid this much for this type of keyword. Going back to keyword intention, that's an important thing to see, is what you're paying for each type of keyword. That technically would go against Google's TOS. So I don't know if there would be any companies that could survive doing that. It certainly was a thing back in the day. I haven't seen that for a few years now with that type of thing. But if you're paying for AdWords, you should be getting reports, and you should be paying the customers should know exactly what they spent on AdWords, and they should know exactly what they spent on the actual management of that. Every customer deserves that. I think that's the proper, clear, fair, and transparent thing to do. And Google also wants to actually see that. That's part of their better practices. You could actually probably lose your account if Google knew that you were hiding that type of information. So it's not uncommon where the agency will be like, just we will pay for all of the ads and all of the bidding and everything, and then you just get that report. But that's not really how it should be. The agency can pay for the ads, but you as a consumer or the person purchasing it, you really at the end should know exactly how many clicks you got for one keyword A, B, and C, what you paid for each one of those, what the CTRs were for all those individual metrics, and you should know exactly how much was spent on AdWords itself versus the management fee. If they're not doing that, then they are doing you a disservice for sure.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've actually looked at agencies like that. I don't know if they still exist. Yes, you're right. That was a few years ago, and I was just still wondering, that's still around.
It's hard to get away with it these days. Things like Google My Business and reviews. The internet never forgets, so it's harder to treat people poorly, I guess. But AdWords is one of those weird things. Well, marketing in general, right? sometimes it's hard for customers to understand what is going on. Like marketing is a very intangential type of thing. You can't see all of the elements going together. It's not like when you hire somebody to build a fence, you can see each panel going up by time. But for AdWords and marketing in general, there's a lot. Like take SEO for example. All the customer knows that they rank number one, but they don't see all the work that goes behind that. And so sometimes there are a lot of nefarious people that sort of hide behind that cloak of confusion type of thing and take advantage of that. But it's harder to do because of things like Google reviews and stuff like that. And again, the internet does not forget, right? So
100%. 100%. Geoff, what did an account setup look like, let's say 7 years ago versus today?
fundamentally, there's some things that never really changed. We have campaigns in, say, like we're looking at, we'll take Google as an example. So you have a Google account, which is the most, oh, I just triggered my phone. Sorry about that. The most macro setting is the account itself. And then the next layer is at the campaign setting. So campaign is where you decide where your ads are going to show. At the campaign level, you set the budget and the ad schedule. So that really hasn't changed over time. And then inside each each campaign, you would have ad groups. And so an example for ad groups would be, as a plumbing company as analogy, you would have one ad group for plumbing, generic type of plumbing, and then another ad group for boiler. And then in that boiler ad group, you'd be bidding on boiler keywords and you'd have boiler ads, and those boiler ads would then drive them to a boiler landing page. Those sort of core elements haven't really changed. That's the basic anatomy of AdWords. But then later on, Google has been adding on layer and layer and layer. So there's all kinds of new things that maybe didn't exist back in the day: structured snippets, site link extensions, call outs, image extensions, locations extensions, which are linked to your Google My Business account. So if somebody's near your business and you're running a restaurant, as an example, though your Google My Business is linked to your AdWords, and then AdWords then can display a map and a phone call icon so that somebody can reach your business, either phone call or get directions, that type of thing. So Google's been piling on the layers, and in particular, Google's done a lot of automation and bid strategies. That's maybe a big thing that's changed a lot from the old days. Everything was just basic. You set your own bid management. Now there's a lot of automated bid management, I guess, compared to the old days type of
Are you
thing.
testing that?
Am I testing automated bid strategies?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the holy grail. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've
Um,
noticed that with some of our accounts, you're doing that, and client accounts.
So one of the most important things in most marketing, especially in AdWords or any paid advertising campaign, is being able to track conversions, right? So, simple things we want to track. If you're a plumber, again, easy concept for everybody to get their head around, is maybe having a clickable phone number and maybe a web form where people can fill out their name and ask for a quote or something like that. We want to make sure that we're able to track phone calls and track those web forms and tie those conversions back to the account so that we know which campaign, which region, which keyword, which ad, which gender caused us to lead to a conversion. Now, you as an AdWords manager, you can make those decisions manually, but Google allows us to leverage things with automated bid strategies so that Google understands this is the most prime time of day. It might understand that on Tuesdays between 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock is when most people are going to be actually making their plumbing phone calls or their plumbing web form submissions type of thing. And so what we want to do is allow Google to use all that machine learning and artificial intelligence to do all of that heavy lifting for us so that us as ad managers are spending more time on thinking about what kind of messaging do we want, or what kind of creatives do we want to apply to the ads. And that's maybe one of the biggest things that's changed in AdWords is automated bid strategies are one of the most important things. I think that's a real game changer in ad performance.
Geoff, talk about conversion tracking. Is that still a challenge? Like phone calls and form submissions?
Yes and no. I mean, technically they're not difficult issues. I guess sometimes it's difficult for customers to sometimes get the buy-in on that. You'll be like, how long is it going to take to do that? And it's like, well, it's going to take us, 5 hours to get all of these things set up, or one particular task, and a customer might push back. And I think it's unforgivable to not take advantage. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about digital marketing, is that in theory everything is trackable. If you compare that to, say, like you go back to the glory days of running like a radio ads or a billboard ads, very, very difficult, or a newspaper ad, very, very difficult to understand. If you're running a newspaper ad and a billboard ad somewhere, it's very difficult to understand which one of those, was it the billboard ad or was it the newspaper ad that generated the phone calls for me. I guess for them, the only way they can get around it is to use different phone numbers, one phone number for the newspaper, one for the park bench type of thing. So yeah, it's not difficult to set up. Sometimes customers just don't understand the value of it. But if you're going to be running AdWords and you're going to be spending a significant amount of money, get that conversion tracking up from the very beginning, because everything that is measurable can be improved. If you can observe something, make a change, and then see what those changes provided, you can improve things. But if you don't have these goals or these metrics, you're really just sort of guessing what you feel is the best thing. And sometimes, you have seasonal trends that, oh wow, I did a change, but that change didn't really affect things. It's the seasonal trend of something, like, maybe furnaces are a big uptick, but it's because it's the fall and it was cold, and that's why you're seeing a big uptick. It wasn't those changes that you made, because you have no way to verify that or track that kind of thing.
Mm. Geoff, is remarketing still powerful?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it hasn't changed much. What I like to use remarketing for, so remarketing is basically when somebody lands on your website, you can then put them in an audience and then chase that person with an ad. So you can chase somebody for up to 540 days. How long you chase somebody with an ad is going to depend on the business. If you're selling, say, like something really, a long funnel, that's something maybe really expensive, like selling, I don't know, really expensive luxury vacations or something like that, you might want to chase somebody longer, because it's going to take them a longer amount of time to make that purchase decision. Whereas for plumbing, one use for plumbing would be somebody lands on our website, but they didn't take action. They didn't make a phone call. People are searching on their phone. Your phone is a very crowded and competitive place. They get another phone call, someone distracts them, some other pop-up happens and they're off the website. So the nice thing about remarketing is we can take people that landed on our website. And a lot of times people too, when they're looking for a provider for whatever it is, they'll go to one website, check them out, don't take any action, and then they'll go look at another website. It might take them a week to make the decision. If they're going to buy a furnace or a big ticket item, it might take them a few weeks to sort of, browse a few websites, see what they're feeling. They're doing that research thing. So the idea with remarketing is they've landed on our website. We can now maybe chase them for, say, maybe 30 days. Maybe for plumbing, we want to chase them for 30 days. Depends on the topic. You probably don't want to be chasing them for a year, because most people don't take a year to make a plumbing decision. But the idea is that we want to bring them back. So sometimes things we'll do with customers will be like, they land on our website. We would then chase them with an ad that talked about, customer reviews. See why people choose X, Y, Z plumbing, and then that ad would then drive them to see a page about why people choose us. And so the idea is that we can try and, we know they've been on our website, but they didn't take action, so that remarketing ad can chase them and try and bring them back on the website. And we know they've seen us before, so maybe let's drive them to a why people choose us type of page, and we would declare all of our awesome unique selling propositions. People choose us because we have 400 Google reviews, we're insured, we're bonded, we guarantee our work, that type of thing, to try and bring them around and make that purchase decision. So yes, I think remarketing is powerful for getting customers who didn't take action the first time to come back and take action. It could also be used for people who abandon shopping carts and Shopify and stuff like that. But it's also really powerful for developing brand awareness. Coca-Cola runs ads. Everybody knows who Coca-Cola is, but Coca-Cola is still running ads, because it's powerful to reinforce that brand identity. And so remarketing is a very powerful thing for that, I think.
Geoff, we used to work with Scenic Cruises, and they're a luxury cruise line. How
Mhm.
long did you chase people around with remarketing? Do you remember?
I think it was quite a while, actually. I don't know. I think it was probably around 6 months. I guess, yeah, probably around 6 months. I think it's a big ticket item. It also depends on your budget too. So you can even see things like frequency impression. So you can see, if I'm spending $1 a month on remarketing, my budget is so small that, say you have hundreds of thousands of visitors a month and you have a tiny budget, your budget is so small that your remarketing campaign won't be able to reach all those people. So, and something like a luxury cruise is a big ticket item. People are not just dropping money on that. That's not something an immediate purchase that they make. So I think it would be appropriate to run, minimum 30 days, because people probably take at least 30 days to plan that stuff out. They look at all different kinds of cruise lines. They're doing research, that type of thing. So I think something like 6 months is appropriate. And you can also break it into different audiences. You could test a 30-day audience, a 30 to 60-day audience, a 90 to 180-day audience, and then And that's again the beautiful thing about internet marketing is pretty much everything is trackable. So if you see customers falling off, your click-through rate start to decay over time, then you can sort of find that sweet spot. But I think it's been a while since we worked with them. But yeah, probably 3 to 6 months was appropriate for them because that was a rather long purchase funnel item, I guess.
Jeff, what do you think about chasing people who have already converted? I mean, I could make a perfect example. Maybe facial cream. Your facial cream container will eventually finish.
Yep.
Have you worked with that?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. That's another way to think about it. You know somebody who has purchased from you. You have a different relationship with them than somebody who has never purchased from you. And so quite often, you might want to do things. You might want to promote your customer loyalty program, right? And be like, customers who purchase more than $200 this month get an extra set of bonus points or an additional freebie or something like that. And then your remarketing message can be different to them. They have had enough faith in you to actually pull out that credit card and purchase something from you. So yes, absolutely, it's a great way to bring people back. And quite often people forget about things. I guess it depends on the item. Something like face cream, I don't know how long a container of that lasts, but sometimes people, they might even forget where they bought it, or maybe that's a commodity they can buy at other places. So absolutely, I think that's a very powerful tool for new customers and past customers for sure.
Tell me this, how long do you usually spend on a medium-sized project from scratch or a large-sized client? Like what happens from the beginning? Let's say somebody is going to spend $50,000 a month in paid advertising for, the province of Ontario. Where do you start? How do you determine how long you're going to spend starting on that project and maintaining that project?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a complex question. So to the first point, medium-sized project, that means a lot of things to a lot of people. Now, you could be a very large company, but only offer one service, say something like pressure washing. So if you have a single service like that and it's only pressure washing, I suppose in theory you could break that project into, people say, pressure washing versus steam washing versus maybe different ways that people say that. But even still, that's not a very complex thing. So that will depend, but they might be a very large pressure washing company that spends a lot of money. Now, if you're spending $50,000 a month, as an example, and you are a pressure washing company, you might want to have a campaign, say, in every major city. You have a campaign for Vancouver. The reason that we would have a campaign in Vancouver would be like pressure washing in Vancouver. So people are typing in, we know they're in Vancouver, they typed in pressure washing, they see an ad that declares we do pressure washing in Vancouver, and then maybe we drive them to a page that's about Vancouver or just pressure washing across Canada. And then we would maybe build out that campaign for every single city that was worthwhile building. Obviously, we wouldn't build campaigns for cities that were so small that didn't justify spending the time building it, type of thing. But then it's also going to depend too, you get into really complex plumbing websites. So for example, you might have a plumbing provider that, say, works across BC or many cities in BC, and so they might offer 20 different services: boilers, heat pumps, hot water tanks, camera inspection, drainage repair. They might have 20 or 30 services. And then each one of those services might actually be tied to a city. So if you got 50 cities and 50 services, you would combine that. That's 250. It's 2,500 ad groups you would have to create across to mesh all of that. So it really depends on the number of offerings and the number of regions that you're offering. So medium
Mm.
is an ambiguous term because it can mean a lot of things. If Does that make
It
sense?
does, it does. The example you just gave, you know, let's say you're targeting the province of BC, right? And they're going after 10 cities and they've got 20 services and all 20 services are very important to them.
Hmm.
How long would it take to start this? Let's say they already have a, campaign up, but you're taking over. How long does it take for you to audit that campaign? One, and two, set up something better. And three, maintain. I know it's a tough question because you don't have access to the account in front of you right now. But
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, I guess it depends. I mean, if they've done it right and you have 20 services across 20 cities, that's 20 services, 10 cities. Each city would be broken into its own individual campaign. Every campaign has its own set of settings. You would then look inside of that to see all of the ad groups. Inside each ad group is all of the ads, all of the keywords. Oh my goodness.
You work in plumbing right now. Tell me, you don't have to say the client, but you can tell me how long it took for you to go over the account, fix it up when you started.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, quite often too, you can sort of, without going through the entire account, all you gotta do is maybe take a sample of it, so within a couple of hours, you could pretty quickly see, take a couple random samples within the account and go, okay, this campaign looks super good. But if you immediately find a bunch of campaigns that aren't set up properly, then you can sort of assume that all the campaigns aren't set up properly. And then if that's the case, then quite often what I would say to customers is, maybe we would pause all of those old existing campaigns and recreate them. There's things you can do with various tools where you could clone these old campaigns, start new campaigns, leave that old data there so that you can have a quick comparison. I think it's a very valuable thing to do. So they can say, hey, here's what your data used to look like. Here's what it looks like now. But getting into the time of that, in the beginning when you take over account, that is the most amount of labor, because, and it also depends too on how much money the customer can afford to spend monthly. So maybe, if a customer says, well, I can only afford 10 hours a month, well, I might just spend 10 hours a month for the first 6 months cleaning all that and making a really good proper structure. So I guess it really, it depends. It's a tough question because it's every account is so different.
Yeah, that makes
I feel like a
sense.
politician, like I'm not really answering that
No,
properly.
that's okay. It's just like search engine optimization, and they tell you, "Hey, I need to rank for
Yeah, how long is it
roses."
gonna take me to
How
rank
long
number
is it gonna
one? It's
take?
like, yeah, it's like,
If I could answer that, trust me, I wouldn't be working with you.
yeah,
If
yeah,
I could
yeah, yeah.
absolutely answer that with 100% certainty, we wouldn't be working together. I'd be doing something
Yeah,
else.
yeah, exactly. You almost gotta kind of bite off chunks of it. It's like, hey, let's try do one keyword. Well, it took us this amount of time for this level of competitiveness. Now we'll work on the next one. Now you can sort of set up some expectations. Or with the client, hey, you had I managed to fix up 10% of your account in 20 hours, right? So then you can kind of make an estimate and then and move forward with that based on what you were able to do in the past, type of thing. But it's just so complex. Every business is so different. Every business is a special snowflake, so to speak, right? Different needs, different, yeah, they're all so different. So sorry, I wish I could give you a bit more of a
That's
ballpark
okay.
answer there,
That's
but
okay. I guess I'd have to wait. Well, I know some of the clients and projects you work on now, but I'd have to wait for a new client or a new project for you to tell me, look, I spent this many. Actually, I can on teamwork. I can check it out now.
yeah, yeah, there you go. It depends on the retainer too, right? I mean, if a customer has deep pockets and time is more important than money, then you can try and really rip through a lot of that stuff. Some customers are a bit more cash sensitive, or they don't have that cash flow. So like, okay. And also too, it's trust issues sometimes. Like, in the beginning, hey, let's just do this for you. I'm going to work 10 hours a month. And then the customer starts seeing those results. You start building up the trust. The customer sees, oh, I put, X amount of dollars in, and I can see all these things that are on the other end. I can see the phone starting to rank 10% more. Customers stay on the website longer, blah, 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 blah. And then eventually you start ramping things up, right? So there's a lot of it depends on the customer too. Like I say, it's the condition of their website. And again, that ties into CRO. And so that might even tie up my job. If I'm waiting for their developer to fix up all those pages, I might even say to a customer, it goes against my best interest, but it's like, hey, you know what? I think you're in a very competitive market. I don't think it's prudent for you to be running ads right now until you get these pages set up. You can run ads if you want. I'll give the customer the option. Some customers like, nope, I want to go and run it anyways. But I've been in cases where I've sort of told the customer, I don't think you should be running ads because you're in a really competitive market, and I think you're going to be pouring money into something that is not profitable. I mean, ideally, you want to put a dollar in and get $1.10 or $1.20 or 50 back, type of thing, right? And so if you feel like, I feel I accountable to the customer, I treat their money like my money, and present the options to them. And customers will appreciate it, even if it sort of hurts me in the beginning. Customers remember that kind of stuff. It's like when you go to a mechanic and you say, "Oh, my car makes this horrible noise. I think I might need a new engine," and then comes back and he goes, "Oh no, something just wasn't tightened up." You remember that, and then you probably won't be changing providers after that. Once someone treats you right a couple of times, right?
100%. Jeff, always, always a pleasure speaking with you. I always learn something new. And even though you're older, you speak a million miles a minute and
Yes,
very, very knowledgeable.
the
And
venti coffee talking there.
yeah, and you sound like a 22-year-old. So
Oh, thank you.
I know I'm gonna put up a picture on our podcast, and you're gonna look stunning. But I'd like to have a picture of you with the beard, not without the beard, because we're gonna put your picture and my picture on the podcast photo, right, on YouTube.
Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else? you want to go over? Did I miss anything?
So I think one of the new things coming out is Google's Performance Max. For a long time, Google has sort of, I think, had this vision of a fully automated campaign, and I think Performance Max is the closest thing that we've ever come to that. Performance Max basically is where you create a campaign and then Google almost manages all of it. You don't pick keywords. So what you would take is you would supply Google up to 15 images of your business, 5 videos, 5 30-character headlines, 5 60-character descriptions. Google then will take all of those ad assets, combine them, and then display those ads on search, Gmail, YouTube, and the display networks. And then as data comes in and as people click on things, Google starts to understand all of the various combinations on all of the various different networks. And so this is the closest thing that Google has to a fully automated thing. Other than me supplying the images, the videos, the headlines, I can't even really maintain anything. So with this campaign, basically, there's nothing you can really maintain other than you can supply it the assets. There's some stuff you can break down in the campaign, but really it takes away a lot of the heavy lifting. And Google does all that heavy lifting with all its machine learning, understanding genders, devices, and stuff like that. I think Performance Max is going to be one of the most important campaign types coming up in the future. I don't see everybody rolling it out yet. Not all. Well, I'm not even sure all accounts even qualify for it. It's been kind of new. It was in beta in the fall, but I imagine that's going to be getting rolled out to everybody if it's not already rolled out to everybody. It also ties into local search too, where people has the ability to drive people to your storefront type of thing. So that's also going to combine in there with your Google My Business profile listing. So if you're a service provider, say for or if you sell clothing and stuff like that, that Performance Max will even tie into your Google My Business location. But yeah, Performance Max, I believe, is the holy grail that Google has been chasing for probably 5 to 10 years. They've been talking about this, but they've never been able to pull it off. I think really what they'd like to sort of see is, small businesses being able to eliminate people like me and supply their own assets, throw it in there, and Google's machine learning is just so darn good that it does all of it magically. Hasn't quite gotten there, but I think that's where they're trying to get to.
I don't know if that's scary or if that's good.
Yeah, it'll change it, right? I think it's okay. They're still going to need things like CRO and stuff like that, and understanding landing pages, and even creating good good marketing, right? With good messaging, good unique selling propositions, that kind of stuff, right? So I think it'll change stuff. It's just like all they talked about automation or computers killing jobs, but it always creates new jobs down the road type of thing. So while you know, technology eliminates jobs, technology also creates new jobs and changes jobs. So it might be painful in the short term, but I think it'll be bountiful in the long term. There'll always be things for good marketers to do.
Fantastic. Anything else, Geoff?
No, I think we've covered it all there. I mean, of course, I
Yeah,
could go on for days if I wanted to, but
you can. I know you can. All right,
if we get good
everybody.
feedback, maybe we could do another one.
Well, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right,
Yeah,
beautiful. Thank you, Geoff. Thank you very much for
yeah.
meeting me,
Thank you.
talking to me, and I will catch everybody on the next podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.